Welcome to Oakdale Bible Baptist Church. My name is Brother Elden Mayo. I am the pastor. We will continue with our study on mustard seed faith. This is the third segment. Our first segment, we simply introduced this, and then we began with the last segment to study the attributes of mustard seed faith. We'll first look at what our Lord said, as He said, "If ye had faith as a grain of mustard seed, you shall say unto this mountain, remove hence to yonder place, and it shall remove, and nothing shall be impossible unto you." And again, we're looking at this instruction from our Lord concerning the type or the character of faith which we should have, the faith of a grain of mustard seed. And so we said last time that it should be an active faith, a growing faith, and this is good. But growth without any sort of structure to it is not enough. I want to look at another attribute in this segment, and the fact that we should have obedient faith. Our faith will not only cause us to be obedient, but we'll be obedient in the way that we grow. And I would call to mind the mustard seed itself, and even at the beginning of its life cycle, the beginning of its growth, it does exactly what the Creator has planned it to do. It does nothing else. Nothing more, nothing else. It does exactly what the Creator has created it for. And that's what our faith should cause us to do. It should cause us to do what God has created us for. The will, if you will, the will of the mustard seed is to do the will of its Creator. What does a mustard seed try to do? Whatever its Creator wanted it to do. That's what we should have. That's what our faith should be, is that our faith is not in forcing God to do our will, but rather for us to grow according to His will. Perhaps you've planted gardens. I've planted a few. And when you scatter the seed, have you ever noticed if the seed landed right side up or upside down? Probably not. Some seeds you can't even tell. So why is it that the plants grow up from the ground regardless of how the seed hit? Why don't they try to grow down into the ground? Because the Creator put the information in the seed to cause it to grow the right way. The roots desire to go down toward water, and the plant desires to go up toward the sun. And if we have that faith of a mustard seed, then we will desire to be rooted in the right direction. And we will desire as well to grow toward the sun. Not the S-U-N, but the S-O-N. How is it that a person can be saved in a number of contrary environments with any number of habits and things about themselves which are contrary to the way that they should go, and yet still end up being as they should? Because God has put it in His creation. And this is something that happens at the new birth. God puts it in a man or a woman who is born again, who is created, recreated, I should say. He puts it in them to grow toward the sun, the S-O-N. Why is this? Because we're doing what the Creator wants us to do. It's an obedient faith. And what I'm speaking about is having all of us attuned to Him. If our faith is right, if we have that faith which is right, which is pleasing to God, our faith is in Him. That means we want to do what He wants us to do. Now, I'll bring something to you, this mustard tree, because we said that when Jesus spoke of this mustard plant, He wasn't speaking of simply the mustard plant that we plant in our gardens here where we live, the mustard greens, but rather He was speaking of a mustard tree. This tree grows through many seasons. As a matter of fact, what I've studied tells me that it grows over 20 years, over 24 years. And so it goes through a lot of summers and winters. It goes through a lot of seasons. And you and I go through a lot of seasons and summers and winters. And what it does in the seasons is what it's supposed to do in those seasons. And what I'm trying to tell you is that obedient faith responds to the seasons the way the Creator intended. Obedient faith does not try to force things, but simply tries to respond correctly to whatever is around. The mustard tree does not, in the wintertime, after the time for the seeds to fall away, after the time for the sap to fall, in the dark hours, the mustard tree does not say, "I refuse to receive this wintertime. I will not receive this winter, but I will speak into existence spring. I will say spring is here." That would not be faith, would it? That would be foolishness. Can I tell you, this idea that comes about of how that we can demand that God change our circumstances, how that we can refuse to accept things that come our way by saying, I will not receive this, that's not faith. That's foolishness. Faith is recognizing the reality of the summer and the winter and the spring and the fall and saying that my Creator is in command of all things. And I will respond correctly to the season I'm in, whether I like the season or don't like it. And so the mustard tree grows, and in its seasons it does what the Creator intended. That is obedient faith. That's what we need. That's what we must have. Because we will go through these seasons. We'll go through times where we grow, and we'll go through times where it just seems like death, some sort of spiritual death is on us. It's because it's winter. It's because there's a time where it's just hard for us to feel the life force that's in us. But an obedient faith says, I believe in the Creator that created me. And I believe He's here even in the winter. And I will continue to do what I am supposed to do because I believe in Him. An obedient faith, one last thing, causes that mustard seed to grow wherever it is planted without murmuring, without complaint. If I were to plant a mustard tree, it would grow right there. Well, of course it would. Where else would it grow? So why then do we sometimes look at where we are and think that for me to grow, I must move? For me to grow, I must find another church. For me to grow, I have to go somewhere else. Growth occurs wherever that mustard seed is planted. And the mustard seed does not fight it. It simply grows without murmuring, without complaint. Are you somewhere that you do not desire to be? Can you trust your Creator? Is your faith obedient? Because obedient faith means we do what the Creator created us for. And that's all we want to do. Regardless of the times and seasons of our life, regardless of what comes, we simply respond correctly to whatever is coming. Are we in trials and temptations? We learn patience. Because after all, only tribulation worketh patience. And so we understand that this is the time for me to learn patience, or perhaps humility, or many, many other things. But we respond correctly, trusting Him, and not trying to run from things, but simply growing right where we are, right where God has put us. This is the obedient faith of the mustard seed.